Good evening, guys. Let me know if you can hear me. Can you guys hear me okay? Awesome, awesome. All right, cool. So we do have, I want to cover very quickly, we do have a severe threat this evening up in the Upper Peninsula, and some of those storms could make it over to the northern lower part of Michigan as well. Although the severe threat is tied to the western Upper Peninsula, most of the severe weather for the lower peninsula will be coming tomorrow, and that is going to be our focus for this. But I just want to cover this since we do have viewers up in the UP. We do have that marginal and that slight risk up there, and that is for mainly damaging wind gusts. But in that very slight yellow portion on the far western side, there is a tornado or two possible. So if I go ahead and switch over to the day 2 outlook, I'll go ahead and show you that, and then I'll go over some radar for both days. So this is day 1. This is tonight. So I hit the back button here, and I go ahead and scroll down for the day 2 outlook. The SPC has highlighted the areas in green, dark green. So all the way up to Sheboygan, all the way down to around the Three Rivers area. They are in a marginal risk for severe weather. So pretty much the entire state, unless you're in the very far western part of the state, I'm sorry. But the severe threat should remain pretty much on the eastern side of the state tomorrow. Now, here at MSC, we do think that the severe threat may be a little bit further east than what the SPC is highlighting here. I'll go ahead and show you why here in a second. But this is your day 2 outlook. Right now, the SPC is highlighting a risk for damaging winds and large hail. We would agree with that here at MSC. We do think the damaging winds are going to be the main threat. The wind shear needed to produce tornadoes is not there tomorrow. So to see a tornado tomorrow would be a tall order. So that threat should remain pretty much nil. But we never want to rule it out completely, just because it's the way it goes here in Michigan. We have surprise days that do produce, but overall, the dynamics tomorrow do not support tornadoes at all. So if I go ahead and switch you over here to the radar screen, give me 1 second to switch that up. All right, here we go. You guys should now be seeing the radar. Awesome. So starting tonight, we do have this line of storms that is expected. You know what? Hold on. Let me go ahead and switch over to the Great Lakes view so you guys can see this better. There we go. So this evening, we do have the chance of some storms here. A pretty potent squall line comes in. This is 8 p.m., just entering the western part of the UP. That'll continue to work its way east-southeast. As you can see, it weakens as it continues eastward. And about when it hits the Lake Michigan area, it will die, and maybe just some scattered to isolated stronger storms possible. Again, no severe weather is expected in the lower peninsula. It's mainly going to be in the western upper peninsula as the storms are at their strongest between the 8 to 10 p.m. time frame or so. And there is a risk for tornadoes in the very far western part of the UP. But tomorrow is the focus here. So if we go into the tomorrow time frame, this squall line continues to work its way southeast. So number one concern here, why we think the severe threat may be further east, is because this is a whole mess of rain coming in. Now, when we have that rain, what does it do? It overturns the atmosphere. When you want to see severe weather, you want to have the instability, you want to see sun, you want it to be warm and moist, and rainfall just doesn't do that for us. So it's going to be raining on the western part of the state and also the northern part of the state most all morning here, and that will continue to work its way east-southeast through the state. But as it continues down southeast, we may see some reintensification of that line as daytime instability forms out ahead of that line where it's not raining. So that would be areas like Lansing, Detroit, Flint, all the way down to Monroe, Hillsdale, Adrian, Ann Arbor, those areas, all the way through the Thumb, up to the Bay City, Saginaw, Lapeer County, Port Huron, those areas. So that's our thought right now. And then that will continue through the early afternoon hours. And then behind that line, this model does pop up some more storms behind that later in the evening. So it does have the atmosphere recovering slightly, but because of that rain that comes through, I highly doubt we'll have enough instability for a second line to become severe. If it does, it'll probably be isolated in nature. It won't be a widespread severe event. So again, if this line can slow down a bit, it gives more Michigan a chance for severe weather. And again, the main risk can be damaging winds. I say the highest risk is going to be on the eastern side of the state in the thumb, all the way down to Hillsdale County, Lansing, Flint, Saginaw, Lapeer, Detroit, all the way down to Monroe. So that's what we think has the best spot. Again, the SPC has highlighted most of the state. If you're not in the very far western by 131 or the lakeshore counties up by Lake Michigan, you guys are in a severe threat. Go ahead and look at one more model here. This is the HRRR model. Now, we haven't really been using this model this year, or this summer, should I say, because it's been doing a pretty terrible job. But it does kind of agree with the NAM this time around. So go ahead and show it to you. So go ahead and go through tonight here. We have some storms. Again, I clicked the wrong sector. There we go. So tonight we have those storms up in the UP. Those seem to be coming in. It has the HRRR model has a bit stronger here. You can see a much brighter return here on the radar scan here, but it does continue to weaken as it moves east, and this will cross Lake Michigan around the 3 a.m. time frame, reaching northern Michigan around the 5 to 6 time frame, pushing into the state here. We do see some re-intensification along this line here as we get into the late morning, early afternoon hours, and by the time it reaches southeast Michigan, it's still a line here, but it doesn't have much in the way of re-intensification except up here in the thumb. But for the most part, behind that line, we do have those scattered storms also firing on this model. So potentially a couple rounds, maybe off and on rain most of the day, but the bulk of the severe weather should be with that first initial line through the early morning, late morning, and early afternoon time frames. So timing wise, I would say if you are in the western and northern part of Michigan, it's going to be early on between 8 a.m. and 12 p.m. And if you're in the very far eastern areas, like Metro Detroit area, you're looking mainly around the 2 o'clock time frame, I would assume, for that. And that could be adjusted here as this line develops as we track it tonight. But that would be rough time frames for you guys on this line. So with that being said, I'll go ahead and look at one more thing for you guys, just so you guys can get a handle on what we're looking at here. Like I said, we want that instability to build if you want to see severe weather. And I'll show you this model here. The models in general are really hindering instability with this line. As I wait for this to load up here, this is your surface-based instability model here. So the purples, pinks, that's the lowest instability. When you get into blues and greens, that's your higher instability here. So we do have some instability coming in. It does have some instability up there through the western part of the state ahead of that line, and also behind that line as well. So the line right now will be just on the leading edge of this better instability. So it will have some available energy to work with, but what we want to see is cape or instability out ahead of that line. This is 2 p.m. The line is actually crossing much of the Detroit area right now. As you can see, the better instability is back here along Lake Michigan, along the cold front. So with that being said, that would support the idea of a secondary line or secondary storms forming behind that line. I just don't think the atmosphere is going to be conducive to severe weather at that point in time. So potential severe weather with the first round. I don't think it's going to happen with the second round. Of course, if the first round dissipates or is weaker than expected, we could be looking at a second threat. But again, none of the models right now have that shown, so we don't really expect that to be the case. Timing again, if you're up in the western northern part of Michigan, 8 a.m., 12 p.m., very far south and east portions of Michigan, you're looking mainly around the 2 p.m. time frame. And then anything after that would just be some scattered storms. I don't expect anything organized behind that initial line. So overall, of a low-end threat, damaging winds, large hail are your main threats. Tornadoes are not likely. Go ahead and switch over here to the comment section, guys. And if you have any questions, now is the time to ask. I see a lot of people asking for time frames. I just gave that. So 8 to 12 in the morning, 8 a.m., 12 p.m. up in the western northern parts of Michigan, and then clearing the state by around 2 and 3 o'clock. So it'll be a pretty quick line where it works through here. No problem, Diane. No problem, Xander. No problem, Rye. I don't expect this to be a very bad severe weather day. I do think there's potential for some scattered severe and damaging wind gusts across the state. But again, this is a threat that's not going to say, it's not going to blow your socks off. It's not going to be like cancel your day plans for. It's just a threat we're kind of watching at this point. I keep cutting in and out. I do apologize for that. I'm still working on getting better Wi-Fi. I'll have that soon, I promise. How bad will it be in West Branch, Rose City? Again, not going to be a huge concern. It's just a low-end threat for now, and damaging winds is going to be their main concern. I don't think it's going to be a too big of a threat that's going to say, all right, you got to cancel your day plans. You got to drop what you're doing and watch the weather. No, nothing like that at all. Just be prepared for some damaging winds or some gusty winds in general along that line. Yeah, we don't expect tornadoes at all. I do not think, Julie, they will upgrade to a slight risk. And here's a fun fact for you. The SPC, the people who issue these convective risks, today is day 70 of a continuous, at least slight risk in the United States. This is 70 consecutive days. If there's going to be a slight risk tomorrow, it will be in Michigan. But at this point in time, I don't think it's going to happen. Just because Michigan is the only area in the United States tomorrow that has severe weather potential. So if it's going to happen, it's going to be Michigan. But overall, this threat doesn't support that at this point in time. So unlikely upgrade. Do you think this weather or this summer? Do you think this summer will bring more severe weather? Yes, we have a ridge forming. What that is basically a heat dome of hot air in the central part of the United States. And there's a ridge that kind of resembles the letter N that kind of goes over the entire United States. And we are on the northern peripheral of that N, so to speak. Because we're on that northern edge of that ridge, we could be looking at some more complexes, squall lines, stuff like that through the late August into early September timeframe. So the severe weather season is not over. And also with El Nino years, which is the Enzo phase, which is what this year is, the El Nino years tend to be more active in the falls too. So historically speaking, I don't think we're done with severe weather at all this year. Bay County, most areas will see at the very least tomorrow, we'll see rain. That's another thing I can cover here. There is potential for widespread rain as well. It shouldn't be flooding. It shouldn't be a concern. Maybe in areas that got like 4+ inches, like Grand Rapids Metro, those areas may need to watch out for some re-intensification of the flooding threat. But for the most part, it's just going to be about between a 1/2 inch and an inch for most people here in the state. And here's a precip. This will show you guys an example here. Go ahead and run this through. So up in the lighter greens and the yellows is about an inch. There's some areas up here, Grand Rapids, 1.15, 1.32, 1.8, 1.29. Over here in the western side, Ann Arbor, 1/2 inch. Over here, Detroit, looking at about a 1/2 inch. Through the thumb, 1/4 inch. So overall, some soaking rain for us mostly, but the flooding threat should not be too high, but most of us should see rain. As you can see here, the entire state there's not one location in the state that does not see rain according to the NAM model. So just to give you an idea. But overall, areas will most likely get that rain. And also with that line being so big, I'd say anywhere along that line, there is potential for damaging winds. I just don't think it's going to be a widespread threat. So gusty winds and some rain likely for most, but severe winds is going to be pretty scattered to isolated in nature. Yes, Julie, that is 70 consecutive days of, at the very least, a slight risk. That's a pretty active. It's been a pretty active year for severe weather here, not just in Michigan, but also around the country. No problem, guys. A good tornado yesterday would have been a birthday present for me. Yeah, well, maybe next year, although we don't want to wish for tornadoes. If there's going to be tornadoes, we want them in open fields and they're photogenic, not hitting the thing. That's the gold mine right there. We don't want to see anything get affected. But yeah, as a storm chaser, loving to like see tornadoes. I mean, it's definitely a present when you do get to see one. Gaylord is in a threat tomorrow. Yes. Yeah, it will rain off and on. Um, According to the models, so that first initial line comes through, and then scattered storms or showers develop behind that. So it might rain off and on most all afternoon. All right, go ahead and pull back up. Get some more people asking about the severe threat, location wise. Most of the lower peninsula tomorrow is in it, excluding the very western counties along Lake Michigan. And then for this evening, we do have a severe threat in the UP as well. But for tomorrow, the focus is going to be on pretty much the entire lower peninsula. Although we think the threat may be a little further east just because the timing of the arrival of the storms isn't really in peak heating until we get down toward the east and southeast portions of the state. So go ahead and pull this back up for you guys so you can see. There you go. How about now, guys? You guys hear me now? All right, cool. I'm not sure what happened. I'm trying to do it on my phone just because it's a better microphone. I don't know what happened there. But I was answering the question for the what if it went high or level 5 high risk. I was saying the last high risk that we had in Michigan was November 17th, 2013. I believe that was a high risk for the southwest portion of the state. Don't quote me on that. High risks are very unusual here in Michigan. We do have a lot of enhanced level 3 days and slight level 2 days. Occasionally, we'll get a level 4 day, but for the most part, we just have marginal and slight risks here. If it did go high risk, a lot of times states will close down like schools, they'll shut businesses down early, stuff like that. If the threat's that high. Yeah, never seen pink. You know, we can do some digging here if you guys have a second. If we go to the SPC archive, we can pull up the outlook from that day. But for the most part, we just get the very low end risks. But also keep in mind that a lot of the tornadoes and stuff like that are bigger severe days are only slight risks. In fact, we just posted a story on our page from 2021 from the Lake Odessa tornado that went from basically no risk to a slight risk in a matter of about 12 hours. And that day had 6 tornadoes in Michigan. So just because it's a low end risk doesn't always mean that it's not going to be that big of an event. A lot of our events here in Michigan are low end days. It's 2013. And yes, that is November. You heard that correctly. November 17th of 2013. We do get severe weather into the fall season. It's not uncommon. That's just because we have a lot of shear. Shear is usually off the charts. Charts. All right, let's see here. I believe, there we go. So I'm going to go ahead and pull this up for you guys to show you the November 17th day. Again, this is not anytime soon. This is old. This is almost 10 years ago. So we'll go ahead and stop that. Pull this up. There we go. I can't really zoom in on Michigan here with this, but you can see the pink area is your high risk. Now, back then, they didn't have the enhanced risk. So you see the slight, and then you have the moderate, then you have the high risk. The high risk does extend up to 94 corridor there in Southwest Michigan. That is your November 17th, 2013 outlook. Again, not live. This is not anytime. This is previous event. This is not current. So go ahead and pull back tomorrow's risk up here. There we go. All right. Any other questions, guys? Why does it rarely get higher? The dynamics. All right. For number one, we have a lot of influence from surrounding. We're just kind of positioned in a weird area in the U.S. because during summertime, the typical severe pattern is we'll have storms fire out west. They'll track into Michigan, and sometimes they'll track through the morning, and it'll ruin the instability, and then the threat gets lowered. So a lot of times that happens. We do have lake influences as well that kind of hinder the threat early on in the spring when the lakes are cold. In the March and April timeframes, it can hinder warm fronts from advancing up into the state. So that's another reason. So a lot of times here in Michigan, we do have a lot of reason not to have a severe threat, especially early in spring. But as you get in the summertime, it becomes higher, but overall, the dynamics for high risk days just usually don't come together here in Michigan. We're also a lot further north than the moisture down by the Gulf of Mexico and down in the plains. They have clear cut Gulf moisture getting fed up there. Up here, it takes a while. It takes a while to travel. So if you don't have the right dynamics in place, which very rarely happen, you're just not going to get those higher end days. Most of our higher end days are for wind in the form of like derechos or just really severe squall lines, stuff like that. We don't really have tornado driven enhanced or moderate days. Any other questions, guys? If you guys haven't already, be sure to look at our weather radio contest. It's back on our feed, a few posts. If you guys want a chance to win a weather radio from Midland, we are running that contest through Sunday. All you got to do is comment to be entered. There's extra ways to earn entries, but if you guys want to be entered, all you got to do is comment your favorite thing about weather on that post, not here, on that post. No, Joey, no tornado threat tomorrow. It's very, very low. The wind shear and dynamics do not support tornadoes. If one happens, I will probably don't know. I'm not going to say anything, but I've seen weirder things happen in Michigan. But again, it's just there's no dynamics for it at all. Yes, Tisha. There is a risk for hail and winds. Winds are going to be your main threat. Hail's your secondary threat, although the wind should be the primary threat. Oceana County, no update or no upgrade. Mart, very low chance for an upgrade. I wouldn't expect that at all. Oceana County, again, I'm not sure where that's at. Let me look at this really quickly. Again, I'm not familiar with the northern part of Michigan. Up by Muskegon. All right. You are out of the severe threat. Just going to be some rain for you. The severe threat should be the farther east you go, the higher your threat is. I'll put it that way. Timing for southwest, again, looking at the right around noon, maybe a bit before that. Depends on how far south you are. Kalamazoo area, you're looking probably right around that noon, give or take an hour or so. Okay, Coldwater, you're probably looking closer to 12 to 1 o'clock. We'll have to kind of watch what's going to play out tonight. We may be live depending if we have major severe weather in the UP tonight. So we're watching that closely up there. So how it plays out tonight will dictate how it plays out tomorrow. But overall, this line should track across the most of the state, with highest instability being in southeast Michigan. Macomb, Sterling Heights, you're looking mainly afternoon, 1, 2 o'clock. Malcolm County, you are in the severe threat, although I think that threat's going to be highest off to your east. The timing on that will probably be right around the 10 to 11 o'clock in the morning time frame. Any questions? How many rounds of severe weather? So, yes, that is correct. I do think the main threat will be with that first line, although the models are kind of hinting this afternoon at a secondary corridor of instability developing. If that does happen, I wouldn't be shocked to see a severe storm or two. But overall, the gusty wind threat should be tied to that first initial main line that comes through. And then that line should also overturn the atmosphere to a point where storms will probably struggle to gain strength. So I think the first initial line will be the main threat. Again, if that changes, we'll let you guys know. But at this point in time, that's what we think. Isabella County. So Isabella County, you would be in the severe threat. I think it's going to be a little bit highest off to your south and east. But for right now, I would say 10 o'clock in the morning would be a good time frame for you guys. It's going to be a pretty early day, severe weather day if it does become severe. I think that line will probably be at its peak intensity in the south and east part of the state. Yes, Julie, supercells are not likely tomorrow. This is going to be like a linear complex of lines. They're not going to be supercells tomorrow at all. How strong will winds be? Up to 60. I would say up to 60 is a good bet. I think the majority of us will probably see between 40 and 50, though. I don't, I'm sure the SPC people who issue these outlooks are thinking that too. I would be shocked if they do it just for the reason of keeping the streak alive. It's not really ethical in my opinion, but if they do it, I'll be shocked. The Dynamics do not support an upgrade at all, so I don't expect it. Genesee County, you are included. Allegan County, you are on the border. Both of you guys looking mainly around the 11 to, we'll say 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. time frame. Okay, Al, that's a great question. The upper level instability needed for lightning is quite low tomorrow. Again, dynamics aren't going to scream off the charts with this setup. A few instances of thunder, yeah, probably, but I don't think it's going to be a light show or a thunder show by any means. It's probably going to be a lot of just gusty rain showers with some embedded lightning. Kenny, I personally will not be live. I have obligations. So I believe Joel, I have to see if Joel can hop on here and go live. Otherwise, we may not be live tomorrow. I'll have to check with Joel, but otherwise, I don't think we have availability. I am unfortunately tied up. It's not looking too bad for Monroe County, Shauna. Just some gusty rain showers, maybe some lightning. Again, the threat's going to be right around the 1 to 2 p.m. time frame for you guys in Monroe. All warnings will be posted to our page, though. So if you guys do follow our page notifications, you're going to get warnings from us. And hopefully you guys have another way to get warnings. We manually post the warnings. We don't automate that. So if we miss one, it's possible. For the most part, we post all warnings to our page. So regardless, you're gonna get warned if anything does happen. Didn't you just ask me that, Mart? I don't think there's going to be an upgrade for you. I'd say the chance for a slight risk is probably less than 5%. Something miraculous has to happen between now and tomorrow morning for that to go slight risk. Between a half inch and an inch, Eric. If you guys haven't already, hit that like button. We would appreciate that. Helps our algorithm out. Greenville. What time for Greenville? Driving from 10 a.m. through 3 to 4 p.m. So Greenville, the bulk of the severe weather should remain off to your south and east. But for the initial line coming through between probably 9 and 11 o'clock in the morning, then after that, scattered rain showers and storms are possible. But anything severe should be with that main initial line. But again, I think that threat's going to be highest off to your east. It is Michigan, yeah. I mean, we just posted like I said before. We posted a story on our page back in 2021 or today. We posted a story today for a event that happened back in 2021 where it was a general thunder risk here in Michigan, and then at 2 a.m. they issued a marginal for the southwest part of Michigan, and then by noon they had a slight risk with a 5% tornado risk, and there were 6 tornadoes in the day. So overall, I mean, it can happen, but tomorrow, the wind shear, the upper level flow, everything like that, it's not going to be those setups that can suddenly support tornadoes. Like there's some setups that can do that, and there's some setups that can't. This is the setup that really can't because the wind shear is all going one direction. For tornadoes, you want to see that wind shear kind of turning with height. We don't have any turning with height tomorrow. We also have very weak wind shear in the low levels, so overall dynamics do not support this at all. Decatur, Dowagiac, you guys are just barely out of the threat. I would think your threat tomorrow is very minimal, but you will get rain. Kenny, not this time. Like I said, some models do show a second area of instability forming behind that initial line, and if that does happen, I could see some severe weather happening. Again, nothing widespread or blow your socks off, but it's possible. But at this point in time, I'd say that initial line will take most of the instability out of the atmosphere. Nothing for okay, I answered that. Sorry, I was gonna say nothing for Decatur, Dowagiac. Hillsdale County, low end threat for you. Damaging winds is pretty much the only threat. Maybe some hail in there, but for the most part, just some gusty rain showers. Any other questions, guys? You're welcome, Julie. No problem, Kenny. Depending on how tomorrow morning looks, I may hop on here and give you guys an update on it. I usually do work in the morning, like between 6 and 9 ish. When I go home, I look at models and kind of go live from there. So if it does look interesting tomorrow morning, I might hop on here and go live, but I have obligations starting at around 11 o'clock and I'm tied up all day. So Ingham County, you are in a severe threat for damaging winds and large hail. Timing on that's going to be right around the 11 a.m. to noon time frame. Jen, that would be about right. Just heavy rainfall and wind. Some hail is possible. No tornadoes are expected tomorrow. Any other questions, guys? Either way, if I go live tomorrow or not, we'll make a post on the page with the forecast and our map and stuff like that. We always do that. So at the very least, expect a forecast update from us. But otherwise, I won't go live unless something dramatically changes or severe weather might be ongoing. I might do it. But like I said, I'm tied up past 11 a.m. And then I'm not sure the availability of Joel. I know Chandler, Alex, and Nick are going to be all working tomorrow. So because this threat is so early in the afternoon and morning, we're not going to have as much availability to cover this. So either way, we'll have warnings on our page. We'll have forecasts on our page, but the live stream may not be running tomorrow, just FYI. Let me go ahead and get a hold of Joel really quick and see what his plans are tomorrow. See if I can get him on the line here and see if we can talk this over and see if we get a plan going for you guys while we're here on stream. Nothing too bad, Alexis, not at all. As early as 9, 10 a.m. in the morning, but I think the initial line will get to you and it'll probably rain off and on past noon for you guys. But it could, depending on how that line either speeds up or slows down, within an hour or so of 11 o'clock in the morning would be a good time frame for you guys in Hillsdale. I will say, though, something that intrigued me along this cold front, because there's a cold front sweeping through behind this line in the evening hours. Something that I noticed, if there's a good amount of instability there, I don't expect there to be much severe weather. But along that front, just because of the way the upper levels are sheared and also temperature wise, I would not be shocked to see a few cold air funnels. Now, those aren't tornadic, those are just harmless funnel clouds that aren't associated with storms. I wouldn't be shocked to see a few of those in the state tomorrow along the cold front. I don't think that threat's going to be too high. Any other questions, guys? I'm going to hop off here. If not, go ahead and recap really quickly. And if I'll take any more questions, I'll pop in between now and then. But for the most part, tonight, severe threat, Western UP. Tornadoes are possible up there in the UP. UP or the lower peninsula, no severe weather is expected tonight. Tomorrow morning, that could change as that line continues to work its way east-southeast with growing instability through the day. Overall threat is low. Damaging winds is your main threat. And again, right around the 8 to noon time frame in the northern part of Michigan. As you get toward the southern and eastern part of the state, you're looking mainly around noon and after. Secondary storms may pop up depending on this, if instability can redevelop behind that line. But for the most part, that initial line should be the main concern, and also take instability out of the atmosphere for a second line. Again, we'll keep you updated if anything changes. Live stream is up in the air tomorrow, so either way, we'll get warnings on our page and forecast updates on our page as needed. We might go live tonight if the UP warrants. We don't expect the threat up there to be that big, but if we do get anything tornadic or anything significant severe weather happening wise, we will go live for the UP tonight. So no more questions popped in, so we'll go ahead and hop off here. Thanks, guys, for watching. If you haven't already, hit that like button on your way out. Thanks, guys.